And good Tuesday morning. It is Tuesday, August 27th. It is just after 10:30 a.m. And my name is Ryan Belmore, owner and publisher of What's Up Newp. We're continuing our conversations with the candidates here today, and we're starting off in the primary. There's a primary in Rhode Island on September 10th. Early voting for that primary started last Wednesday, August 21st, continues through September 9th, and then you can vote in person on primary day, or you could also go and vote in person right now during early voting. We are starting with Newport's first ward, which has three candidates running. Incumbent Angela Lima is not seeking re-election. There are three-person running for that seat, and one of those folks is Ellen Pinnock. And hello, Ellen, how are you?
Hi, Ryan. I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
And how is the election season going so far?
It's a wild one, quite honestly, for multiple reasons. You already know what's happening nationally, but I am in a primary and I'm running for the first time ever. So it wasn't really expected, but I embrace a little bit of healthy competition. I like a challenge, so I'm all for it. So it's going well.
Yeah, let's see here. Let's start with tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do? And
Sure.
a little bit about your background.
Yeah. So born and raised Newport. I am the director of community engagement for Fab Newport, which is a makerspace child development organization right here in the North End. We're in the Florence Gray Center. So I do a lot of work with kids in various ways. I teach cooking classes. I run social emotional space for middle schoolers at Thompson Middle School called the Heart Club. I teach podcasting. I teach storytelling. I do the parent engagement with the families that we support. And I also do the parent engagement component for the city's Learn 365 initiative. Multiple other things. I facilitate a lot of race equity and intercultural responsiveness conversations for different organizations. Co-chair of Re Newport, which is a community group started by Sue Saprell. And I teach Sunday school at Crosspoint Church to very young kids. I'm a mom and a college student at College Unbound. I'm in my last semester getting my degree in organizational leadership and change.
So with all of that said, which was you are very busy and you have a lot going on. Tell us about, with all of that going on, with all that said, why you chose to run for office.
Like I was just saying, I do a lot of community work, and I've done a lot of community work for a long time. Aside from the things I just mentioned, I'm also on the ad hoc bridge realignment advisory commission, and I was the co-chair of the local action group, or the LAG as it's known when it first started. A lot of boots on the ground stuff, helped to drive a lot of conversations, and I just feel like I need to level up my game when it comes to wanting things to change for the better in our community. I need another platform. Spend a lot of time talking to the decision makers, and I think that with all of the information that I have and all the experience I have, that I'm poised to now become a decision maker.
And you are very active in the community, and just wondering where does that drive come from? Where your drive to serve and your drive to give so much back?
Yeah. I've always had a heart to serve. I can remember being really young, 6, 7, 8 years old, being involved with the Salvation Army and working at the soup kitchen and visiting nursing homes and just different things. And I also had a family who volunteered a lot in multiple ways. I have a family that came from the military service, but also did a lot of service in community. In fact, my Aunt Frances Briscoe is well known in Newport for her activism, especially in our North End community. So it's always just been a part of who I am, but also when you get the opportunity to see things really starting to progress forward for certain people, even if it's one, it ignites you, like that flame, right? You want you to, it makes you keep going. So me just seeing something like, a kid going from having multiple absences before they got into Heart Club to having no absences or way less absences, that's just something that makes me think that what I'm doing is the right thing.
I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions today, and and when I ask them, you can answer them in two-prong if you want, but one of them is, what do you think the biggest opportunities are in First Ward and or Newport? Obviously, you will be, if you were elected, you'd be one of 7 people voting on all citywide Newport issues, but you are the spokesperson for First Ward. So you can answer all of these questions I ask with First Ward specifics and or city specifics, but
Sure.
what really are those big opportunities that you think are out there?
I've been involved in multiple organizations, and one of the things that I can say about Newport with my whole chest is that Newport is probably one of the greatest places where collaboration happens and moves the needle forward. So I think the biggest opportunity in Newport is more collaboration. Definitely in that collaboration, though, the residents of our community need to be centered because there's so many gifts, skills, and talents here that I feel like are underrepresented, underutilized. And I think that we could lean on our community a lot more to get things done, faster or better, or both of those things. So I would love to see more collaboration happening between our community residents and our local government.
What keeps you up at night? If in city government, in the city specific, if you could wave a wand and improve something by tomorrow morning, what would it be?
It would be housing. If I have to pick one thing, I have a few, but definitely housing. And I'm speaking from experience as someone who is considered middle income, but it doesn't feel like that at all. And has been in situations where it's just really tough to make sure that you are able to sustain the roof over your head and everything that comes with it. I just think we need to do a much better job with housing here. It's something that has absolutely kept me up at night, and not too long ago, and not just myself, but multiple residents who reach out in need of just what is a basic human necessity.
Anything come to mind on what you think the city or city council can do to kickstart that or get the ball rolling with affordable housing or housing in general?
Yeah, housing. Yeah, and I'm glad you said housing in general, because affordable housing and housing affordability are two separate things. But anyway, what I think the government could do, I do like the idea of, the less of the short-term leasing options. But I also understand that there are people who live in our community full-time that do depend on some of those options because their rent is a little cheaper for a few months out of the year, which helps them, remain in their home in the summertime. But I do think we need to start looking at less short-term leasing options or less short-term rentals being available. I think that's just a really important thing. Like, I get it. Our economy thrives on tourism, and very grateful that the tourists come every single year. And while they need a place temporarily, we have people that need a place permanently.
You mentioned housing is one of the things that priorities or things you think about most or biggest opportunities. What are some of the others?
Definitely education. As I stated earlier, I work in the schools, and I've had amazing opportunities to be able to get to know our students and families firsthand, and the things that are really keeping them out of schools. But the way that we fund our schools, I think, should be looked at a little bit, because we need more resources in order for all of these performance measures that everybody wants to see start on the upswing.
Are housing and education what you're hearing from people in the first ward? Is that what you're hearing from voters?
I'm hearing housing and education from voters, but I'm also hearing a lot of other things from voters. So I've made it a point to go around to multiple communities in the first ward and have conversations. I've been invited over to the Point quite a bit. I've talked to people that live on Melbourne, And housing and education, absolutely. But there's also things like flooding mitigation. There's the safety of our roads, particularly Malbone and Almocalfus. There's the overusage of utilities, gas being the major one. There are things like pickleball courts. There's multiple things that people have at the top of their head of what's important to them.
Do you think there are any unique challenges, opportunities, or needs for the first ward compared to the rest of the city?
Oh, yeah, for sure. So, living in the first ward my whole life, when I came home from the hospital, I came home to what used to be Townemill Hill. And I've literally lived in the same community my entire life and work in the same community. My organization is, you could throw a rock from my house and hit it. It's right down the street. So I think what is unique about our first ward, specifically the area where I live, is that this is where majority of our marginalized residents live, right? So there aren't the same opportunities, and sometimes there's not the same attention on this area. I was very pleased to see not too long ago that they actually started to put in speed bumps and other safety measures for pedestrians and traffic along Hillside Avenue. And we're in the year 2024, and there are a lot of kids here, a lot of kids in this community. So I do think like there are some folks on our council who feel like I feel that there needs to be more attention on the first ward. Representation is definitely a factor. We are underrepresented in a lot of decisions that are made. Angela was really the only representation that we had, and now we have Mayor Zai, who also lives in the first ward. But I think that the thing I talked about, housing, and people come through our community and they look at all these apartments and they assume that everything here is affordable because that's the way it's labeled. But if they come out and talk to people, they'll find a very different story than the one that they have in mind.
And you may have just answered my question that I'm writing down as you're speaking, but what is something you would want the rest of Newport to know about the challenges or about the underrepresented or marginalized people of the city of Newport?
I was on a conversation with someone about a year ago, and I remember this person kept saying the taxpayers and North End residents. She kept saying that. And probably the third time she said it, I stopped. We were on a Zoom, and I asked her, what do you mean by taxpayers and North End residents? And she couldn't tell me what she meant. But in her mind, those were two separate people, right? The taxpayers were outside of the North End, and the North End residents, I guess in her mind, weren't taxpayers. But the people in our community in Ward 1 in the North End, they work just as hard. They love this community just as much. They want their voices to be heard. They want their opinions to be heard, and they want to be counted as, responsible citizens who care about community, who want to contribute. They're just looking for a pathway to be able to do that. Every door that I've knocked on in this community, and I've had conversations with people, they all want to be engaged in what's going on. They just don't know how to do that. And City Hall, the City Council rather, has done a few workshops recently, and I would love to just see more of those things happening that are more inclusive.
And that's a good segue to where I was going. Not to pick on the current city council because that's never fair. But what opportunities do you think that there are for the city council, or what could the city council be doing better? You just mentioned one of hosting more workshops in the first ward in the North End. Any others that come to mind?
Definitely the community engagement piece aside from the workshops. We have different festivals and parties and things here, and you'll see the same couple people from the council show up all the time. But I think it would be better if they all showed up and took opportunity for themselves to get to learn about everyone, because I understand that, like, I'm representing Ward 1, right? There's people representing Ward 2. Ward 3, and then at large. But at the end of the day, what is said all the time is one Newport. So while we're representing different wards, we're representing our communities, like our community on a whole. So the community engagement piece, I think, is just really important. I think just because you get voted in and you become an elected official, like that doesn't mean that you are hands off when it comes to what's happening in community. So there's an opportunity there. And I would also, if I can add a second thing,
Yeah, of course.
thank you. Like
This
to
is
see,
your time.
I would like to see, some more work alongside school committee. And I understand that those are two separate forms of government. Totally get it. But I do think that there is opportunity there for us to kind of, and I'm saying us because, positive thinking. I think there's an opportunity there for city council and for school committee to sometimes meet in the middle. Like I get that city council can't make the decisions for school committee. But I think if the two got together more often and talked about things that they feel the same on, that perhaps that would be an opportunity to like build a little bit more of trust, a little bit more of relationship, and get things done a little more efficiently when it comes to our school.
Not to put you on the spot, but any other opportunities that you think that they have? I just want to make sure that you list as many as you want. So,
yeah, I think there is an opportunity for us to start growing the race equity in our community. I don't know what city council has done so far. I will admit that when it comes to equity in community, but I do think that like the more you know, the better you do, right? So any opportunity for equity when it comes to city council, because like I said, we are, and by we, BIPOC community is underrepresented.
yeah, and I know that, I'll probably get something wrong here, but I know that they did hire somebody part-time that was supposed to be in equity and inclusion. I'm not sure of the work that they've done, but I'm going to write that down because I'm going to follow up on that and find out.
All right. Thank you.
And it sounds like with how the needs of Ward 1, it sounds like you are in favor of having ward seats on city council. Not that it's a question, but instead of having everybody at large, you're in favor of having somebody represent each area of the city.
I am. For the same reasons that I mentioned, just representation is really important. And I had a conversation with someone, two folks on the point were kind enough to open their home to me on Sunday for a meet and greet, which was really nice. And I will be, I have been honest, but I mean, I will just be very forthcoming at the moment. The point is not an area where I thought that I would be like as welcomed as I am, but that's my own, we all have biases as people, and sometimes our experiences in life help those biases stay rooted. But they've been extremely welcoming to me, very, very open, and I've really appreciated that quite a bit. So, yeah.
That's good to hear. I wonder if we can all take away a lesson from today's chat. We talked about Newport City Council School Committee working together on education. We talked about more on equity. I'm wondering if, those listening, those watching, if there's anything that you think the entire community can come together on and start marching forward with or working on, or the way we talk to each other, the way we treat each other, the way we support education. Is there anything that, we can start doing to support City Council School Committee?
I think I would like to see, so I know about the Broadway community group. There used to be a North End community group that kind of went away, or is just like a little quiet right now. And then there's the Point Association. So like all of these neighborhoods have like these little pockets where they're organizing and they're getting together and having conversations and figuring out the issues and what's important to them and how to move forward. I would like to see a large community group, like Ward 1 community group, where everyone from each of these little neighborhoods is represented and has a voice at the table, and then can sit down and just talk and figure out what's important on a whole, and maybe bring that stuff to city council. Because it goes without saying that city council it's a hard job. It's a hard job. And someone said to me the other day, like, I don't know why any of you would want to do this. It's so difficult. And I said, well, if we want change in our community, those of us who feel that we are strong advocates, activists for that, should step up and role model for those who maybe are thinking about how they want things to change, but aren't really sure where they fit in yet.
Absolutely. It takes a lot, and everybody who is running for any seat deserves a big thank you from the community. I sit through all of the meetings. I think it was almost 4.5 hours.
The last one.
2 weeks ago. Yes, they put in a lot of time and effort before, after, during the meeting. So all of these people, whether you agree with them or not on some of their decisions. Right. What do you think is Newport's greatest strength, and how do you think you could utilize it as a council member?
Yeah, I will go back. I think I mentioned collaboration earlier, but I do believe that is Newport's greatest strength. I'm in a lot of rooms with a lot of organizations all collaborating together to get one thing done, whether it's truancy or, we got the 38,000 daffodils planted in my Antinomy Park. And that was a collaboration of, myself and Sue Saprella, our Newport group, Daffy Days, Newport in Bloom. It was just a Newport Housing Authority, the city. It was just a lot of people from different sectors who came together to get one thing accomplished, and we did it. And I think if we can look at if we can look at things through that lens, that everybody has certain skills, talents, and abilities, and we should absolutely bring those people in, collaborate with those people to get things done. Sorry, were you going to say?
Oh, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so our greatest strength is collaboration. I've seen it for myself in many ways over many years.
I was going to say, it sounds like in the many projects that you're already involved with in the community that you are a collaborator. And I'm wondering, obviously you don't always agree with everybody. No. And obviously you don't, nobody should always agree with everybody, but how do you work with others, especially with those that you might disagree with?
I'm going to tell you, it's not an easy thing. There is a, specific initiative that I'm involved in now where everyone doesn't agree. Some people are more traditionally minded than I am. And sometimes that can be difficult, but I do believe that every single person at the table has quality information, that their thoughts matter, that their voices matter, and that sometimes my new age idea might seem like a good idea at the time until I talk to somebody else and they have a better one. So it's really just about listening to people, not centering myself, not taking things personal. And as human beings, that can be very difficult. If you think you have this amazing idea and then someone's telling you, maybe not, you a little wounded sometimes, but you have to remove yourself from the center if what you're doing is not about you. I think as people, we really have to figure out a way to stop trying to drive our own personal agendas when it comes to doing things community-wide, because the decisions we make and the things we do impact far more lives than just our own.
Yeah, and with that said, I mean, how do you obviously, I can name 40 different issues that are going to come up at the city council meeting tomorrow night. How do you listen to all of the residents, the pro, for, the I'm not sure, and go and represent what's best for Ward 1? Yeah,
so my grandma Gigi used to say, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason, right? So you should listen twice as hard as you speak. So that's the first thing. There was one person that I had a conversation with, and she was saying, as a resident of Broadway, the north end of Broadway, they felt really underrepresented. They felt like a lot of the attention was on the housing complexes that are in the North End, and Broadway was kind of left out of the loop. And when she was saying that to me initially, I was just in my brain went, absolutely not. That's not the case. Like, it's the housing complexes that are underrepresented. But as she was talking about the issues around traffic and like the beautification and all of those things, I started to realize that she actually had a really valid point. So right away, I wanted to respond when she started talking, but I had to remind myself that this conversation was not about me, that I needed to hear what she had to say. And by doing that, I was able to hear what she had to say, and that there were some really valid points there that I think that if I get the seat in this election, that I could actually work on, because it does matter. And what she was talking about didn't just impact her, it impacted that whole community. And when you're thinking about it, a larger community, because the traffic issue where she lives also affects our young kids and families and whoever else that are walking this direction from areas like Thompson Middle School.
Let me see if I can get in everything I want here. I'm going to ask this question because you do a lot of work in families, and I want your perspective on why it's so important to keep families in Newport.
Because this is their home, and as someone who has had the concern of having to leave the area where that's been my whole life, and not just mine but my child, I know what that feels like, that like to have that insecurity every single day, not knowing if you're going to be able to stay here. Like, it really does impact you very deeply in a very hurtful way. And I don't think that anyone should face that, but also like our families that know this community, that have been here there for the majority of their lives, if not their whole lives, they are the greatest contributors to this community. Their kids are in the schools. Like, if we could get to a place where, you know, people aren't worried about the basic needs of life, and I know that I'm alone, I'm not going to be able to solve that problem. But if we could get to a place where people are more comfortable and more confident in having their issues heard, and believing that the people that they're talking to are going to be able to do something about it, and they're feeling more comfortable with staying here, then like it just, our kids would be able to stay. I'm going to try not to get like emotional, but it's hard. Our kids and our families, like the place that they call home, that would actually mean something to them. The schools that they attend, the friends that they make, the relationships that they build, none of those things should be threatened. None of those things should have to go away. And we have a lot of work to do to make sure that our community is thriving and not just on the fringes of survival. You know what I mean? But I just think that it's really important to know that people have a place where they feel like they belong. Yeah.
We can't speak about families without speaking about education. And
Right.
obviously, we have a big old project going on over at Rogers High School, and we have a bond coming up that a portion of it has to do with some school items. It's a $98 million bond. You know, how do we fund, you know, what do we do to get Rogers done? What do we do to continue to improve and maintain our infrastructure?
I'm honestly at the mind of just build the school. As someone that's been working in that school for years, and I've walked the hallways and have seen like rags shoved into places because if it rains, the roof leaks, or you have to wear shorts, ski boots, flip flops, a sweater, a scarf, and a hat because you don't know what the temperature is going to be in the building, regardless of what's going on outside. I would just like for the school to be built, and I think as a community, if we, and as a council, if the power is there for that to happen, that should happen. And I get that we need to save money for a rainy day and for emergencies and all of those things, but we have to fund the project for the school, for the kids to have a safe place to walk into. And when I think about other infrastructure, we have the 98.5 million bond that's coming that has, you know, plenty of money in there for new infrastructure. I just hope that the infrastructure the new infrastructure that's being built is like environmentally friendly. Yeah.
I was just looking at your questionnaire, which I am going to plan on publishing.
Okay.
But just a fun way. I see you're obsessed with British television.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I wonder, without hurting anybody's feelings, are you a fan of the Gilded Age?
I am actually,
Okay.
but that
All right.
just happened. I for my birthday, my friend brought tickets for my daughter and I to go meet Danae Benton,
Oh,
who's
yeah.
of the Gilded Age, and have dinner. And we did that, and I had watched maybe 11 minutes of the show up until that point. But then once I met her, I said, okay, let me go back and watch. And I ended up like binge watching the whole show, and now I'm waiting for the next season.
All right. Ellen, are there any topics that we did not talk about today or bring up, or we didn't go deep enough on that you wanted to bring up?
I don't think so. I think you pretty much covered everything. I would just like to say that again, I'm well aware of how hard the job is for city council. I don't take it lightly. I don't think it's just for anybody, but I'm running because I believe that, my skills and abilities that I have to build trust and work in multiple spaces in community, put my own feelings aside, not drive my own personal agenda, is something that's needed when it comes to our elected officials. So, and I'm also running because there are a lot of young girls and boys who look like me, who do not think that their voice matters, and don't think that they can be in leadership because that's what they've been told their whole life. So I'm hoping that me doing this, regardless of the outcome, shows them that they actually do have a place here.
Excellent. If people want to get in touch with you, email, website, I'm going to run the website on the bottom here for people as well.
Yep. Email, website.
EllenPinnock.com, just your name. And then your email is?
info@ellenpinnock.com.
Excellent. And I appreciate you taking the time. Couple things. Early voting has already started in in Rhode Island, but particularly in Ward 1, it has already started as well. And it goes all the way up to September 9th. And then people can go actually to their polling place on September 10th. One note on polling places for those who might be watching. It is a primary. So you would know this, or there might be overall in Rhode Island, there might be fewer polling places because it is a primary. So visit vote.ri.gov.
Yes.
To see your sample ballot, as well as to find your polling place and the hours. Did I miss anything there?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, Ellen, thanks for running for office. Thank you for all you do for the community of Newport. Hopefully, I do say that on behalf of everybody in Newport. Thank you for all you do, all your involvement, all you do for families and children and everybody else. Wish you the best of luck, and we'll talk to you real soon.
Thank you, Ryan. Have a wonderful day.
All right. And that is Ellen Pinnock. EllenPinnock.com is the website for more information on her campaign. Thanks for watching. If you missed any portion of this interview, want to watch it again, want to share it, all available on whatsupnoop.com. Thanks for watching.